traição.
Fala aí, galera, hoje a gente está aqui conversando um pouquinho sobre o Thronebreaker. A gente vai fazer uma entrevista aqui com o pessoal da CDPR, falando um pouquinho mais sobre o lançamento do jogo. So, first of all, I'm André pegaia from Entrevista, and nice to meet you. Can you talk a little about yourself, what you do in CDPR?
Sure. My name is Mikołaj, and I'm the senior localization producer. And I've been working in CD Projekt Red for almost 9 years, and working on The Witcher 2, Witcher 3, and also Gwent, and now Thronebreaker.
Okay. In the start of the production, you talked about Thronebreaker as an expansion for Gwent, and you talked that it would be like a 15 hours long game, and The Witcher is like a 70 hours game, so does this number have changed once it's now a standalone game?
Well, yes, they do have changed. So we usually have this, maybe let's say, problem that when we start designing a game and we try to, get the best story, etc. So the game starts to expand, and at some point we actually realize that it's becoming less an expansion to Gwent. It's becoming more of a standalone game in terms of the sheer size, in terms of complexity, etc. That's why we decided to actually have Thronebreaker as a separate title, because it's an actual full-blown RPG game. Of course, like the visuals are different than in The Witcher, but in the core, it's actually a proper RPG game.
Okay, so we had the opportunity to test a little of the gameplay. So we could see that we had different game modes. Can you talk about them?
You mean the let's say the story and the normal mode? Well, yes, because we know also that we have a lot of players, a lot of fans that are actually very interested in our story, but they're, let's say, not like everyday hardcore gamers. So for those people, we designed this story mode. It's basically, it doesn't change anything in the game itself, because you can play, you can enjoy the story, you can fight the battles, but if you, for example, come across like a battle that's super frustrating or it's too difficult for you, you can just skip it, and you still can continue the story, continue the game, and finish the game. So this is actually like a bow towards those players who are actually most interested in our story. But of course, for regular players, we also have the normal mode, and in Thronebreaker, the gameplay is actually powered by the mechanics of Gwent. So the battles are actually Gwent battles, but they're of course different than multiplayer, because when you have a single player game, you don't have to balance everything like in a competitive multiplayer game. So we had much more freedom in terms of designing cards, in terms of designing their skills, and also creating custom puzzles that actually are anchored in the story itself. So for example, if you have an ambush, something happens, you have different board states, so like there was much more space to develop different kinds of battles with Gwent that way.
Okay, so it's not supposed to be just a game for Gwent players, but for The Witcher players too that want to relive their experience, right?
I think it's for both, because on one hand, if you have Gwent players, so they can actually see and play Gwent in a different way, like using different rules. So, but it's still, of course, the mechanic is the same as in Gwent. On the other hand, you have people who like The Witcher and like the story and like RPG games, and for them, Thronebreaker is this kind of like. So I think it's a mix for two. I think this game will be interesting for both groups. So it might incite some people who play Gwent to actually reach for The Witcher, and some people who actually never played Gwent to actually reach for the multiplayer Gwent experience.
Okay, do you think it can be helpful for the Gwent fanbase to grow it up, or do you think it's just for the Thronebreaker itself? I mean, Do you think it can be positive for Gwent too?
Yeah, I think it will, because I think there might be some people who are, for example, scared of like card games, and if they feel that's not something for me. But when they play Thronebreaker and they feel the RPG game, but then they start playing and they say, hey, I'm really enjoying those gameplay mechanism, like this battle mechanism, the card battles, so they can actually try out the multiplayer. So I think there is this synergy between those two worlds.
So just to make it clear, it's an RPG, right?
It is an RPG. It is a full-blown RPG made by the story writer of The Witcher, the quest designer, the lead quest designer of The Witcher. So we have all the elements that are really important for us in RPG games. So you have choices and consequences. You have different companions you can have relations with, in terms of like somebody can like you, not like you. For example, leave your party if you do stuff that is against their way of life. So you have all those elements of a real RPG game in Thronebreaker.
So we were talking a little about Myth, and you said that she could be a really nice person, or she could be like not that bad guy. We think so.
It's not being a bad guy. Like Meve is a queen. She's a ruler. So she's a completely different character in terms of than Girl, because she has responsibility. She's responsible for her country, for her people, and she really needs to make tough choices. There are very often situations in the game, I don't want to spoil, but like you have to really choose the lesser evil. For example, I don't know whether you actually set someone free who attacked you, or you, for example, execute them. Because, for example, if you set them free because they had reasons, your soldiers will be angry with you. On the other hand, if you execute this person, for example, some other party will be not happy about it. So basically, Neve, during the game, she really needs to actually make very tough choices. And it's not about being good or bad, but you can really be like this merciless ruler. On the other hand, you can be like more compassionate, but being compassionate maybe not always is the best solution.
So our actions have different have consequences in the game, right? So we could see that we have troops, we have money in the game, we have materials. So does this impact it?
It does impact, like for example, one way to actually obtain the resources in order to develop your army and develop your camp is actually doing side quests or puzzle battles. Like the map is filled with stuff to do, and it affects the gameplay because you have to expand your camp. When you expand your camp, you can train better troops, you can improve your army, and for example, there will be some situations where you have, for example, have a side quest and you approach it, and then it turns out that you're too weak to actually complete the side quest because you're attacking a city and the city has super strong defenses, so you have to actually back off and actually gather more defenses, train better troops, and then come back in order to actually complete a quest.
So in some aspects it can be similar to the way The Witcher was. In The Witcher 3, for example, we had to improve our armors, our swords, and have upgrades for ourselves. Sometimes leveling up, and we can expect that.
Yes, well, there's no leveling up per se, but the whole development in the terms of gameplay is actually based among the camp and the troops. But it's not only the camp, because, for example, sometimes you get access to super powerful cards by doing side quests. Because, for example, if you meet a character and you can actually convince the character to join you for some reason, this character is also a card, of course, a character card, and they have like very strong special skills. But then later you do something that actually enrages them, and they decide to leave your party, and then you lose the card again. So it's kind of very interesting way this gameplay mechanics actually come into role. So it's intertwined between the economy, like actually fighting the battles, and actually the story itself.
Okay, so I think that's it. Just a little question to end it up. can we expect to have Gerald in the game?
Maybe. Maybe. I don't want to spoil the story.
Okay.
But it's set in the world of The Witcher. It's
in the
taking
Asia?
place in the northern realms, so maybe.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
It was
Um,
nice talking to you. Thank you.